After my wife was insulted and forced to cry by my conceited brother, I expelled him from my wedding. I shared my parents this post after they accused me of overreacting to a joke and my wife of being sensitive and siding with him. In order for my brother to forgive me for making him feel embarrassed, he now expects that I apologize, while his mother continues to provide for him. I cracked up. I don't want my family to discover this, so I'm throwing it out since it's blowing up. This past weekend was my wedding, and I must admit that I'm still in disbelief. I have been married to my fiancée for 7 years. Together, we have experienced everything moving, losing our jobs, her struggle with anxiety, etc. Therefore, we were meant to finally celebrate all of it on our wedding day. Correct? That is, until my brother decided to sabotage it. For background, my brother 30M has always had a peculiar penchant for pulling practical jokes. He refers to them as jokes, but in reality they've always been offensive and humiliating. When I was younger, he would say I was being overly sensitive, and I would either laugh it off or become upset. It went gone too far this time. At our reception, he stood up and spoke. For once, I thought it would be good if he said something sincere. However, no. Instead, he plays a fucking slideshow of amusing old pictures of my wife from her Instagram, showing her sobbing, appearing weak, or just generally looking really unpleasant. When we initially started dating, he used to make jokes about her weight changes, claiming that she used to look like a twig and that now she is better fed. My wife's face became pale. She began to cry softly, and my brother joined in. He continued to chuckle as if he were the world's funniest man. There was complete silence in the room. I became enraged. In the midst of his tirade, I got up, approached him, and urged him to go. Regardless of whether he was my brother or not, I told him he was done. My wife felt ashamed. He attempted to dismiss it, claiming that everyone else found it amusing and that I was ruining the pleasure. Nobody chuckled. Not one individual. At first he wouldn't go, so I ordered security to remove him. On his way out, he called me a drama queen and hurried away. I embarrassed my brother during my own wedding, and now my parents are mad at me for it. They believe I overreacted, and that because he didn't intend it, I should have forgiven him. My mother even said that my wife was exaggerating as well, and that this was all a result of his humor. Since then, my wife hasn't stopped sobbing. I informed my family that we would be on a vacation. However, my parents are now bombarding my phone with texts claiming that I have destroyed my own wedding and shattered the family over a joke. I understand that I lost it, but I couldn't bear to watch my wife in such pain. AITA, did I go too far? Comments dry __sandwich __ 860. Your brother's current troubles are due to your parents. No one else at the wedding looked impressed with your brother, so you should let them know that he has alienated you by not teaching him proper behavior when he was a mischievous youngster. Additionally, they have isolated him by offering justifications for him. Your parents are standing by your brother, who destroyed your wedding, and they are still bugging you about it. You should learn everything you need to know from it. Pitifulous. NTA, it was your brother, not you, who caused the family to fall apart. Go LC or NC with them, honestly. Your family is now your own. Pay attention to that. Update. Hello everyone, I wrote about what happened during my wedding here a short while ago. I wanted to express my gratitude for all of your support and remarks. Although it's been a difficult week, I thought I'd give everyone an update on what's transpired. I kept my word and informed my family that we were going on vacation after evicting my brother. I banned my brother from everything, and my wife and I made the decision to spend the week together, attempting to rekindle some of the happiness that had been taken away from us on our special day. We attempted to block out the turmoil for a while on a mini vacation in a cabin we had leased. But as soon as we returned, my parents unexpectedly appeared. All they wanted to do was talk it out, they said. However, as soon as they took a seat, it became evident that they were there to protect my brother. They insisted that he was only trying to be humorous and that I had overreacted. You know how your brother is, he didn't mean to hurt anyone, my mother even added. I informed them that my wife was harmed by him, whether he intended it or not. I can't just ignore it either. Then my dad told me family blood is something you don't ignore. And I really went crazy. I informed them that my wife and I have chosen to have a family, and if they are unable to respect her, they would not be allowed to join us. They stormed off, accusing me of manipulation and my wife of being overly sensitive. The next day, my brother made another attempt to contact me through a common cousin, claiming that he didn't intend any damage and that he would forgive me if I apologized for making him seem foolish in front of everyone. I was completely amazed by this. In that instant, I knew that he still doesn't recognize the wrongness of what he'd done. I haven't replied, and I have no intention of doing so, not because there is a problem between us, but because I want to make sure she feels supported and understands that I'm completely on her side. My wife and I have begun couples therapy. I believe it's helped me see how poisonous my brother's conduct has always been, and it's been helping her process what occurred. To recover what that day was meant to be for us, we have agreed to hold a modest, private vow renewal with just a few close friends the following year. We're concentrating on our shared future in the interim, and excluding everyone who doesn't value our relationship. If my brother's jokes are more important to them than my wife's happiness, then I'm honestly fine with it. However, I may have broken up my family. Once again, I want to thank everyone who reached out. You have no idea how much that meant. Reliable comments highlight neighbors. Screw your family, NTA, as we said in your earlier article. You and your spouse deserve a happy existence. Up. Pilot_3055 was agitated. Make plans for a happy life with your spouse. To do that, you must break up your relationship with both your parents and your brother. They're all morally bankrupt. Update. Hello everyone, I'm here with another update, and I must say that I'm still in complete awe of the amount of support this article has received. During this difficult time, my wife and I have read a lot of comments, and it has truly helped to validate our sentiments. I'm really grateful for it, everyone. Many of you recommended that I share my parents this post so they can see how bad my brother's behavior was. I did, and I must say that the response was, to put it mildly, mixed. I instructed them to read the post and comments after sending them the link. I hoped people would see that nearly no one is defending my brother's behavior, but I wasn't expecting them to alter their thoughts instantly. Since then, my dad hasn't spoken much, but my mother has stepped up her claims that people are too quick to condemn and that the internet doesn't know our family. Using jokes like that, she even attempted to claim that the commentators don't get that my brother. We're still not on the same page, of course. I informed her that the damage my brother inflicted on my wife was the real issue, not his motivations. We need to spend more time apart if she is unable to comprehend it. I understand why I refrained from punching my brother in the face, as many of you urged. Believe me, I had that notion in the heat of the moment. To be honest, though, I realized that a bodily reaction would have diverted attention from my wife's sentiments, which were what truly important. Maintaining my composure was difficult. In front of everyone, I didn't want to give my brother the satisfaction of having me appear to be the villain. Additionally, I didn't want to make an already terrible situation worse by escalating it further. Instead of getting into a fight, I needed to be there for my wife. Ultimately, it was the proper decision to kick him out. In order to preserve my wife's dignity in our marriage, I made the decision to defend her. Regardless of what my family may believe, my wife has been a huge support system, and we are focused on going forward together. Again, I want to thank everyone for their nice words, suggestions, and comments. They have been our lifeline at this really trying time. Sad remarks that highlight confidence 19563. Your mother's defense of your brother's mischievous actions merely demonstrated what a jerk she brought up. You could wish to mention that his display also made both of your parents feel ashamed. He demonstrated to your family and the outside world that assaulting a lady on her wedding day was not only justified but also acceptable to them. They are SHT parents, then. Congratulations, AP. I understand your point, and it's difficult to overlook the fact that my parents have long tolerated my brother's actions. The pattern is more important than the prank alone. It says a lot that they are justifying his behavior on such a significant day. I hope this acts as a wake-up call for them. But I'm not here to criticize them. My wife is my first priority, and I will not tolerate anyone, not even my family, treating her in such a manner. They must understand that decisions have repercussions, regardless of how amusing someone finds them. To Fox is the old steo. Go into your parents' house. Urinate on the ground. I'm simply like that. I am aware that this is terrible conduct. But since you're my parents, you need to let me act whatever horribly I want. Leaf. Do it each time you come. You may use this in place of any other extreme yet eye-catching action. Up. Maybe the next time I'll just bring a bullhorn and make the announcement if that's the standard we're using. I'm not being rude. I just have a peculiar sense of humor. They'll appreciate that justification, I'm sure. Correct. After that, we'll see how many family get-togethers I receive invitations to. Update. First of all, once again, I want to express my gratitude for the tremendous support and considerate comments. The number of people who have taken the time to leave comments, offer guidance, and show empathy is much appreciated by my wife and myself. Knowing that we're not the only ones who feel this way has been a tremendous comfort. What about the responses from the family? Alright, let's get started. Mom. She was shown the post, but she wasn't immediately convinced by the comments. She persisted in attempting to portray it as a harmless joke and held on to her opinion that my brother's actions were intended as taunting. But she did seem to hesitate when she saw the huge number of comments criticizing him for being insensitive and harsh. She eventually acknowledged that, even though she didn't like how I handled it, she now understands why it caused my wife such pain. Even if she hasn't reached her full potential yet, it seems like a little progress. She also said that she could apologize to my wife, which is something. My father kept quieter about it. When I showed him the post, he remained silent but acknowledged that perhaps my brother had gone too far this time. He's still mad at me for making a disturbance during the wedding, but he seems to see why I had to cover for my wife a little more now. Although he is undoubtedly unhappy with the way things turned out, I believe he is beginning to see that this was more than a light-hearted prank that everyone could laugh off. My sibling. When I showed my brother the post, however, he became even more determined. His answer: "There are a lot of sensitive folks on the internet that find humor offensive. People are just too sensitive these days," he said, dismissing the entire situation. He didn't seem to be receptive to any criticism about how cruel his acts were. He even had the audacity to claim that by posting the tale online, I overreacted for influence. My brother is obviously still confused. And to be honest, I doubt he ever will, even though saying it hurts. I believe that this situation could cause us to become further apart from one another, which is probably best for the time being, where we are. After all of this, my wife and I are taking some time to take care of ourselves. With my brother in particular, we have established limits. We're resolving it, and I'm more certain than ever that it was the proper thing to defend her, regardless of what others may say. I've learned from this entire ordeal who really has our backs. Once again, Reddit, thank you. It has been a crazy ride. All of you have somewhat eased the situation. The wife's statement. I wanted to express my thanks as a wife. Hello everyone, I can't tell you how much it means to me to read all of the love and comments from this community in private. It has been really comforting to have so many people acknowledge the pain and embarrassment I experienced on what ought to have been the best day of our life. I was having trouble feeling ashamed, as like I was exaggerating. However, your remarks have served as a reminder that I am quite entitled to defend myself. I'm really appreciative that my hubby took that action. Since the wedding, I've experienced a range of emotions, but it has been more helpful than I can express to know that there are others who share my sense of fairness and respect for other people's sentiments. I sincerely appreciate everyone who took the time to leave a remark, give guidance, or just express support. You have genuinely contributed to our progress. Remarks. Stormsway emphasizes, I'm happy to see this update. I'm still angry with your folks. It seems so clear. One day that is meant to celebrate the couple getting married is the wedding. You get ready for it. You arrange a lot of SHT, thus it is absolutely unacceptable for someone to make the wedding's most memorable moment unpleasant. Given that your brother is utterly irrational and incapable of showing consideration for others, I believe it is obvious that your parents have grown accustomed to making excuses for him. Therefore, allowing him to do as he pleases is the only way to maintain harmony and keep the family together, both now and forever. The only way to keep the peace is to placate the most irrational and self-centered individual. You're absolutely correct. Realizing that my parents have been supporting my brother for years, like you mentioned, most likely to maintain harmony, is really upsetting. However, that tranquility comes at the expense of everyone else's health. He crossed a boundary during our wedding that should never have been crossed. But it's one thing to ignore minor transgressions. What was meant to be a celebration of love turned into a confrontation with his self-centered actions. I've realized that maintaining harmony in my family is really a code for allowing the most challenging member to act whatever they choose without facing any repercussions. And you're right, it's simply avoidance. There's no true peace in that. We're establishing limits to ensure that this doesn't continue, since my wife and I both deserve better. I appreciate you recognizing that and pointing it out so blatantly. The second story. After years of abuse and neglect at the hands of my entitled parents, I went full NC. My father's accusation that I had provoked him and scolded me with his priest after his employee sawed me was the last straw for me. I'm finally far away from my parents now that I've been recognizing how awful they were. I'll tell you about one of my mom's slaps. I acknowledge that I wasn't a perfect child, but I was also not the worst. Playing games on my dad's work computer after breaking in was the worst thing I did. No crimes, no narcotics, no smuggling, no drinking. However, it seems that they weren't satisfied with it. I was around 15 in this instance. My mother arrived yelling when I was at the workplace. What did I do with the batteries in my phone? Background: rechargeable batteries power the workplace phones. I have never taken the batteries out and I have no cause to do so. She hits me when I tell her I didn't do it, and bring up the same points I made here. Later, my dad admitted to her that he took the batteries out. My mother's reaction? I apologize. No true regret. No solace. Nothing. At that age, my face was covered with a large hand mark. My dad once challenged me for allegedly using my emergency phone to call a radio station I had the contact information just for the sake of having a contact. I had no pals when I was 14. My phone apparently dialed it by mistake. I'm honest with him. It must have been an accident, because I never called that. He says, "That's for lying," and then he punches me. "Punch me in the face, please." I roared in rage. "I don't talk to you because of this." A huge error. Swung around to attack me. I hastily snatched up a wooden chessboard from my room, covered my face with it, and dashed back into the clothing closet. All he could do was strike the board, shattering it in two. He missed the remainder of his blows because of the clothing. "Never talk to me like that again," he yelled. When I was finally able to seek mental health treatment from therapy and was given a severe ADHD diagnosis at the age of 29, it was one of the last straws in our relationship. I made the decision to notify my parents after receiving treatment and support in the hopes that they would accept responsibility for my condition and forgive me, therefore repairing our relationship. They said, "Oh, we already knew." But they didn't want to spend money on you because they thought you would go on. I was astonished by it. I then suggested that they see how my sisters were doing to make sure they were okay as well. "They are perfect," they remarked. "In this house you were the only one with mental health issues." I was really hurt by it. Making very little to no contact with me. I'll write more tales about it, but these are the ones that most impress me out of all the things they've done. Update. Part 2 is this. Even if this post's stories aren't as horrible as the prior one, they're nonetheless terrible enough for me to remember. My age is 29. I've come to the realization that my parents were or are narcissistic now that I'm old enough to get therapy for my ADHD with the support of my friends. They struck me with belts and magic wands. As I've become older, I've come to the conclusion that beating a child as a form of discipline is bad. I believed I was deserving of the penalty for a long time. However, I only responded by talking back, acting lustfully, or using gadgets excessively. Do you know what happens to teenagers throughout puberty? Never used drugs, drank alcohol, committed felonies, snuck out, or vandalized anything. But they struck me with belts and clubs. Additionally, the sticks you need to insert your tool sockets are made of plastic rather than wood. They referred to it as the magic wand and threatened to use it on me if I misbehaved. It's so awful that I get a little PTSD from panicking every time I hear a belt clanking. My activities would never pique their attention. My therapist referred to it as child neglect, I believe. I'm an artist. I enjoy playing video games and painting. They wouldn't care about it at all. When I showed them my drawings as a child, they would say, "I don't like it, you waste time on it, but why? Your family won't be fed by it. You sketch this evil monster, but why? Sketching hybrids of wolves or dragons, by the way. Why can't you at least show a bit of interest in my things?" I questioned them when I approached them. Their reaction. Considering that I am not a hypocrite. This type of thing bothers us. Why should we act as though we enjoy it? I was only trying to get my parents' attention or their favor, even when I made an attempt to like their vehicles, hobbies, and cooking. They would chuckle and remark, "Good luck feeding your family with it even after I had earned money from the art I created in streams. Your immaturity will make it impossible for you to find a spouse." I had no desire to have children. Then avoid getting married. If you think like that, no woman will desire you. I found one joke about them. You're so indolent that you can't hold down a job by sketching or playing video games. A waste of time, really. You will never mature. You will never marry or have friends because of this. When I made the decision to go to Texas with a buddy, that was one of their actions that I thought was humorous. They said, "They don't want to help you in an attempt to dissuade me from going. They wish to take advantage of you. Most likely they want something from you. Without anything, no one would assist you." And my fave. "They'll leave you in an ice tub after harvesting your organs." This individual is still a buddy of mine. Furthermore, she never demanded anything in return. She is among my closest pals. In subsequent postings, I'll continue to share additional anecdotes about their actions that I will always remember. Update. I'm returning to share more of what they did, though. And this is a significant one. I'm a man. Trigger alert for those who detest the R word. When I was between the ages of 13 and 16, a 30-year-old man enveloped me. I try to forget most things, therefore I can't recall the time. I'm currently 29. I'm okay now that I've attended treatment. Instead of sending me to treatment or locking up the person who wrapped me in a cage, my father blamed me, claiming that I was old enough to understand that what I was doing was wrong and that I had likely provoked him. Then goes on to explain what transpired to one of the priests, whereby he ultimately chastised me for allowing things to reach this point. No police reporting, no assistance, no pity, no therapy. I suppose he at least dismissed the worker. I became half agnostic for a number of reasons, including this. I never confided in my parents about anything personal. They discovered that I was engaging in inappropriate behavior in my room by myself when I was 16. They broke my phone and belted me instead of talking to me and giving me advice on how to manage my hormones like a typical parent would. And then instruct a priest to chastise me once again for my immoral actions. When the PS3 came out, I spent my money on it, and I was glad to have a system of my own at last. How foolish I was. Oh, in order to view Blu-ray movies on it, my dad removed it and connected it to his TV, I informed him. My PS3 was that. I spent my money on that. Since I dwell in their home, he claimed that this was his house, and that the PlayStation belonged to him. I informed him, and attempted to reason with him. It may be applied to movies. If he permits me to play it whenever I so want. I'm laughing, he said. Regarding this, I have nothing to say or say. That when he says to let me play, he will. Although I did play with the PlayStation, it demonstrates their narcissism and sense of entitlement. When I have more time, I'll continue to add additional tales about them. This is a nice method for me to get my frustrations out. Update. I'm returning with one last post regarding what happened to my entitled parents in January of last year. And the final post is most likely the result of my decision to break up communication. This is the reason. I thus made the decision to go back to my hometown in January of last year in order to show my wife my house, the cuisine, my family aside from my parents, and the landscape. I wanted to see my mom's side of the family, especially my granny. God bless her. I wanted to offer my parents an opportunity to turn their lives around. I thus gave my parents a call to inform them a month in advance that we would be visiting in a week. They offered a ton of reasons, most of them religious, rather than expressing their happiness for me and making arrangements, claiming that they have too many religious obligations to simply leave and join me. I gave a disappointed response. My wife and I are going to come see you for only a week. You haven't seen me in over 2 years, and your religious beliefs prevent you from finding time to spend time with us. They grudgingly took the time to see my former house after dining at a restaurant. These are the things I will always remember. Making a lot of excuses to avoid seeing my wife or even myself. My darling Melody, my puppy, was mistreated when I arrived at their house. She was emaciated and covered in knots. It hurt my heart that she was so happy to see me crying and crying despite her advanced age. My parents forbade me from taking her with me, and I didn't want to start a quarrel in front of my wife. In such nation, reporting animal maltreatment is pointless. They began criticizing and dictating my decisions once again as we sat down to catch up. They said things like, "You have different stages in life. Now that you're married, you should think about the stage of children." I immediately retaliated. My vasectomy marks the end of my family history. Well, I guess you skipped that stage, you'll never grow up, they said. Since my wife doesn't speak Spanish and the most of the talks were in Spanish, I felt on the edge. Before I could lash out at them, my wife saw that I was tense and comforted me. They kept repeating, "I'll never grow up," and griping about my choices, which included Legos and video games. I went to see my mom's side grandparents, uncles, and aunts the following day after I departed. I discovered a terrible reality at that point that made me more aware of abuse and entitlement than I had before been. I adore my mother's side of the family. They are kind, compassionate individuals. I said, "I wish I could have seen you more often when I was younger," in passing chat. "We wish that too," they responded with a scowl. However, we were unable to. I inquired as to why. My extended family would constantly celebrate my accomplishments with love and give me gifts. My parents, however, were envious since they lacked the time and resources to spoil me, so they threatened to divorce me if they did so, frightening them into making the barest minimum of contact for fear of losing me. When it wasn't true, my parents would lie and say things like, "We don't have time," or "They are busy." Their willingness to visit was constant. On my mother's side, they intimidated my grandfather, asking him to never dare attempt to discuss anything with me regarding a possible future or chances. They clarified that I was a burden and unwelcome to my parents, but they refused to accept assistance, as that would demonstrate their incapacity or disdain for me. I don't bother them since they used video games to divert my attention. It dawned on me then. My parents didn't even give me their whole attention since they were too busy with their jobs or their religious obligations. All of it made me start sobbing, and my family and I held each other thereafter. I texted my parents and other family members after my stay to let them know where I was on the plane, when I boarded, took off, landed, and arrived home. "Thank you for informing us. Fly safely. Let us know when you get there," or "Bless you," were the usual responses from my extended relatives. It was good to see you. But that was the last straw since my parents never once replied to anything. I've made the decision to stop communicating with my parents altogether. They exposed themselves when I tried, and I'm done putting up with it. I appreciate everyone who has read thus far and for their love and support. I'll keep my head up and live a joyful life since it's been therapeutic. The same applies to each and every one of you. No matter who they are, don't put up with nonsense from entitled individuals. You are important. Keep your head up or ask for assistance. Things will improve. Remarks. M. Srizri. I hope you will take their criticism as an unintentional compliment if growing up means behaving like them. And whenever you can, I hope you'll spend time with your extended family and foster those bonds. Don't even bother informing your parents about your upcoming travels, and persuade your relatives not to do the same. More than you may imagine, I was able to recreate one of the sets my aunt gave me using my old Lego bucket when I went to see my folks. That was pricey. And when I showed her that I still had it, along with a little personalized storybook I had when I was 2, she burst into tears of happiness. Those will be as valuable to me as gold. Hopefully I'll go back to see them in January without alerting my folks. We appreciate you viewing the video. We've got more stories in store for you if you're interested in hearing them. All you have to do is press the like button, subscribe to our channel, and tell your friends about it.